Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Test Tube Plus today. I am Trace. This is episode 1 of 5 on our new series about borders and boundaries. Why do we have these invisible lines around us, and how have they evolved over our history? Not just humans, but throughout our history. And what good are they? Are they good or are they bad? We're also going to talk about some strange and ambiguous borders later on in the series, borders that are all over the world. Some of them are literally around the world, but we'll get to that later. So first, why do we make borders at all? What is it about humanity that makes us want to divide each other up? I mean, all animals have some level of territory. You know, you watch any of the nature channels, hopefully Animal Planet, and you'll see the animals divide up their territory. Chimpanzees, according to a 2010 study in Current Biology, will fight wars for that territory. And when you fight a war for territory, as a chimp, you gain similar things to what humans gain, and that is land, improved security, extra food, resources, better access to mates, any number of different things. And many animals recognize that there's such thing as territory, hunting grounds, and all sorts of other kind of ways to mark your space. Mainly it's for mating purposes, but all sorts of animals will either, pee on trees or spread their scents in some way so they can say, this area is mine, stay away competition, I'm protecting my offspring here. And that extends to humans, of course, as well. And scientists think that chimps, being one of our closest genetic relatives, indicate that. Of course, bonobos don't really have the same territorial display that chimps do, and they're also related to us, so maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room here. According to Julius Caesar, in his book Gallic Wars, in ancient Germany, there were no separate estates or private boundaries. The Romans invaded Germany. They were all a bunch of these little states. And instead, the Germans practiced shifting cultivation, where they farmed and then would move. It's not great for the land, because what ends up happening is you destroy a whole section, and then you move on to another section and destroy that while you're farming it. It's kind of a halfway point between nomadic culture and agricultural culture. And that was around 2,000 years ago. Then 400 years ago, in the book West Virginia, A History for Beginners, John Alexander Williams writes about Native Americans, a very famous non-land ownership group. For those listening, non-land ownership is in finger quotes. The Indians had no concept of private property, he writes, as applied to land. The idea of an individual having exclusive use of a particular piece of land was completely strange to Native Americans. This is a pretty common thing to hear, especially here in the United States. We like to think of the natives as these non-land ownership groups, but we learned this in school, and it's not actually that accurate. Anthropologist and historian Frederick Hodge found in 1910, when he interviewed tribal members who had lived in pre-reservation Indian societies, that individual private ownership of land was the norm for many North American tribes. Anthropologist Francis Densmore looked at the Maka tribe in the Pacific Northwest, and they had property rights similar to Europeans. So borders aren't like this thing that somebody invented recently. Chimpanzees had it. Ancient humans had it thousands of years ago, and even more recently, people who we think of having no borders also had it. And let me just say, each of the Native American tribes had lands with borders that changed constantly, not unlike our ancient animal cousins. Tribes would constantly be shifting their lands around, and tribes understood who controlled land and when and where those borders were, but they were all kind of ambiguous. As human civilization developed, we moved from open land into agriculture, and agriculture requires tending a plot of land, taking a specific piece and making sure that that piece works for you. When you do that, you have to protect that plot from predators, which when you're growing crops could be deer or rabbits, but it could also mean other humans. It could mean predators like wolves if you have cattle. Farming the same land for generations makes you want to protect that land even stronger, because that is now a big part of not only your survival, but your family history. And that makes it essentially a de facto border. This is my land, I worked it, and I need it. And there are dozens of reasons as to why humans are territorial. They increase their security, they increase their ability to defend themselves, they reduce the spread of disease, they can reinforce dominant political structures, and even localize things like waste disposal. English zoologist Vero Kopner Wynne Edwards suggested that territoriality operates in order to control population size as well. Julian Edney, a psychologist from Arizona State University, described Wynne Edwards' hypothesis like this. Territoriality is basically caused by dominance and population control in many animals. It's about establishing a community with only a certain number of mouths to feed. Communities regulate their numbers by competition for territory and also for food. The winners are the dominant animals, and that comes with social status and responsibility. Sounds a lot like a border around a state, a municipality, or any number of other human inventions, or so we thought. Perhaps, if you think about it a little more broadly, our tribe is American, and we are friendly with the Canadian tribe, but not friendly with some other tribes. Borders increase security, they protect the members of our tribe, and they motivate and bring people together to help protect that tribe too. But since we're not run by tribal leaders, but by politicians and bureaucrats, our borders aren't what they used to be. So how do we decide what they are now? How do they evolve over time? We're going to talk about that tomorrow on Test Tube Plus. So let us know what you think about borders and boundaries down in the comments below. And make sure you check out last week's episodes about alternative energy. We had Julian Huguet in, also from D News, to check us out and talk about green energy with us. It was pretty awesome. And thanks a lot for watching Test Tube Plus. Please subscribe, share us with your friends if you like, and you can also go find us on iTunes if you'd rather listen to an audio podcast of all 5 of our episodes this series in one. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow on Test Tube Plus.